Have you noticed that the world is evolving quicker than ever into a new system called the digital world? Cash and credit cards are shifting to cryptocurrency. The digital form of security guards are called blockchain. Instead of playing video games with hand controllers, you can now insert your mind into a 3D world. If any of these terms are unknown to you, we have a special guest to explain it all. I am your host, Mr. Aurelius, and welcome to Star Tech Podcast. I just want to say I have a very special guest. He goes by the name of Mr. Pascal. Mr. Pascal, how are you today?
Great. Thanks for having me here.
You are now in episode 2, and you mentioned before that this is your first podcast?
Yeah, kind of funny. I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, have I done this before? And maybe I have, going back to my childhood when I was at the Vienna Boys Choir, touring the world. I'm sure we've had some of these or interviews of some kind, but recently it's been more the stages, getting up and the kind of meetings and other things. And I have the honor to teach at a university, so I do a lot of that, but not in that specific setting.
So may you just tell us right quick who you are and what you're all about?
Yeah, my name is Pascal Haider. I always start like this. I'm a father of 4 kids. We live here in Dubai, originally from Austria, Vienna to be very specific. And I'm very passionate about people and technology, well knowingly that technology is complicated and people are irrational. And how can we help people to use technology to kind of make their life better, create more value in business, wherever we are? And, it kind of led us in the current month and years now really to embrace this whole Web3 idea, right? And asking ourselves, what does that mean for brands? What does that mean for education? What does that mean for all the other elements in life and where we're heading towards? And there's a lot of work to be done. It's very exciting and it's very inspirational because I think as we're entering into this new era, it takes a bit of courage.
Right.
And us as humans, we tend to like to stay where we are in our Starbucks cafe. Why would I ever try to enter into a virtual one when I can actually sit there and sip my coffee? While maybe the opportunities that would arise there are fundamentally greater and better, not comparable necessarily, because it's great what it is, but where it can take us, I think, are quite exciting. And that drives me, that's my passion, and we specifically support brands of all kinds, educational institutions, very strong in the sports field to actually start looking into this new sphere of opportunity.
All right. So, Mr. Pascal, we understand that the fantasy world can now be a reality by using Metaverse technology. May you share with us what to expect with the Metaverse in the coming years?
Yeah, I think when we look at the Metaverse, we consider it being something out of reality, right? It's something that is kind of like an alien coming to us now, and we're evaluating, does that actually make sense? Is that going to stay or not? Is that just going to be a little trend that is going to disappear again? And I think that's a fundamental wrong thought of this new development. If you think of digitalization in the bigger context, and the infrastructure with 5G and everything we have, it is only natural that digitalization will find a 3-dimensional component. So when people ask me, so what is business going to be like in the Metaverse? It's going to be exactly the same. We're not fundamentally changing the way what we do. It's just going to be expressed slightly differently.
Right.
We as humans didn't change because the smartphone came. We just start to live a slightly different life. We're more efficient, more effective. We create different values. We have different communication channels, but we still communicate. We still talk to each other. We still buy products. And everything, all of this will remain. And I think that's an important one. It's the natural progression, what we see in digitalization, same with AI and everything else that is popping up right now. So I think it's not a what is it, what is not. It is what it is. Reality with a 3-dimensional component.
Well, so what you're saying is, like, let's say, for instance, the DVDs or VCRs, people worry that the internet, they're going to replace the cinema, but the cinema still exists. The same thing with 3D movies. People thought that since 2010, I think Avatar was released in 2009, everyone thought the 3D movies would be like the new hype, the new trend for the coming years. But we still watch 2D movies. Things are still the same how it was back in the 1950s. So what you're saying is technology will change. Yes, it will make major changes, but certain things will still remain the same.
Absolutely. And I think we're just adding a layer. And it's an interesting layer because I think fundamentally it's a creative layer. You know, it allows us to think beyond. Because when we are three-dimensional, we create reality. And that's very powerful. So if you think of a brand, we talk a lot about digital twins in the metaverse. Like we have a building and we're building exactly the same building in the metaverse. That's nice, but that's not very creative. But now we can actually add hidden elements. We can have something floating in the air. And I think a lot of inspiration will come from that. And that's why I think it's powerful. And it feeds a lot into the whole, you know, fear and worry around artificial intelligence, which I think we're going to probably talk about as well, which I think is a big gift to actually go to the next level.
Speaking of artificial intelligence, do you think that AI is just going to be another form of advancement? It's just another set of technology to help us grow and build?
Well, I think with any technology, it serves any angle, right? We go to the very left, to the very right, to the extremes. So absolutely, there is a fundamental threat, and it has same as the internet. There is, if the same, you know, is it safer to live in a small village without internet? Well, the opportunity is limited, but the threat is also limited.
Right.
Now, as we enter into the internet, you know, the Web 2, essentially, well, obviously there is now we opening the scope even further, but I think it's just as exciting, not exciting on the dark side, but on the negative side, as much threat there's at least as much opportunity.
Absolutely.
And it's always the same. It's a risk-return game, right? We always want to have highest returns, give me lots, right? Every year, X amount per year. But with every big risk, return comes a risk. And that's the game we're in. And that's why it's not something new it's the same.
Right.
It's just another layer. It's just the extension of what we know into another sphere.
And I also want to ask, how will artificial intelligence change education? You know, as an educator, as myself, teachers have been saying that they can do homeschooling now. They can actually have websites teaching their kids. So I just want to ask, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I also in that regard, I'm a very, very big fan of artificial intelligence, just as much as I'm a fan of actually kids spending time together physically. I like the idea of homeschooling, just as a very basic intro here. I like the idea because it kind of challenges you in different ways. I like the idea of artificial intelligence, which I'm going to talk about in a second.
Okay.
And I do like the physical presence because I think it needs all those components as we see our kids grow up. But where I see the challenge, you're an educator.
Yes.
Right? I mean, if you have 20 kids in class, right?
Yes.
It's difficult to support them individually in the best way possible.
Right.
Now, I don't think that artificial intelligence should replace an educator in any kind of way, but can guide and support, right? If I have a kid going through math exercises, and maybe they have a different angle to look at this. Maybe they kind of try to understand it slightly different because they are less intellectual, more creative, right? So that they take a different turn. How great would that be if an artificial intelligence can identify that and support children to be very early on very successful in what they do? And I think this is where there's an opportunity. Now, I have also the honor to teach at a university every now and then as a guest lecturer. And I know, as a matter of fact, that some of the students used ChatGPT recently to write their exams. It's open book, open internet, right? And I used that and I said, guys, I know that you're doing it. Not in my class, in other classes. And I said, you know what? I want you to use it. You use it now. But I don't want you to write down what ChatGPT says, but I want your critical analysis of what
kind of similar to Google in a way.
Yeah. Yes. Of what came out of it. And I think this is kind of leading to the next stage. I think education will fundamentally change because we will have to upgrade in critical thinking, in creative thinking, etc. And I think this is where the opportunity lies. That's why I'm a big fan, because I think it will help us to go to the actual, closer to the capacities of what we're actually possible to do creatively, intellectually, etc.
Coming up next, we're definitely going to be discussing about Web 3. How is upgrading to Web 3.0 more advanced than Web 2.0, just to all the viewers out there?
Yeah, I think if we talk about Web 2, let's start talking about Web 1 first.
Okay.
And Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. And I think Web 1 was about reading. I was sharing information. I had my standard website, and I would say, this is my company, ABC. This is what I'm doing. Great, right? It's like a piece of information. And that was okay. That was good because all of a sudden it was accessible globally in Web 1, right? In Web 2, we think of social media and we know it's all about sharing content, right? So I have an information, I share it with others and people like it, and there is some kind of social component, but all the data and everything lies with the few big companies that actually use that essentially to give me advertisement, to encourage me to buy new stuff. And Web 3 is about ownership, kind of claiming back data you own, becoming part of a brand, not in the way you just consume it, but you actually start holding something of it. And that was kind of the rise of cryptocurrencies when you started talking, 6-7 years, you would kind of meet up with those and enthusiasts. There were just a few of them. And you would just talk about, becoming part of a tribe when you hold cryptocurrency. And I think this is kind of more where this whole thing is going through NFTs, right? Where you hold a piece of something unique that relates to a brand. Just as much as you kind of hold a special watch of something where there's only so many pieces, we kind of try to enter into this whole concept of decentralization through blockchain technology that allows us to put the authority away from a few single stakeholders to the general public based on technology, which is, if you think about it, quite powerful because it's almost a democratic.
So it's kind of like you don't need to focus on the banks being the middleman.
Exactly.
Yes.
You cut out the middleman and you agree based on trust through technology. And it's kind of scary when you think about it, but you trust technology that they will be the most neutral middleman you can have.
Okay. So, Mr. Pascal, you actually mentioned before about ChatGPT. How will current AI, like ChatGPT and others, impact social networking or jobs in the future?
Yeah, it's a big one. And it's a good question because I have the chance to speak with quite a few people from media, obviously content creators, creative people, that like everything that comes around that is kind of new is scary, right? It's scary. We look at it, oh no, it's not good. It's going to take my job away. I won't have a job. I wouldn't be so worried. It's just going to give us the next iteration. I really believe that the basic line of content that has actually not really challenged us as humans, and we did it for the sake of having a job, gets removed.
Right.
And I thank God for that. We always talk about, I think there is really a substantial potential in us that maybe has not even the time to come out because we were busy doing our hours. Right. And I think those hours can finally be taken care of by somebody else. And, we start focusing on what, makes us special. And it's not to be an extended machine, and I think quite a few of those elements has been this. And I think from that angle, I think it's a massive supportive tool, but it's the wisdom that will win, not the content I create. So it's the way I combine A and B and C. And maybe, look beyond. So even in design, I think we will see graphic designs working with industrial design, with fashion and other things, because we will have this, it's like in companies, we talk about cross-functional teams. We want to break silos. I think this is what's happening. And AI helps us to go faster. Funny enough, similar to COVID, that kind of helps us to digitalize and start communicating via new mediums. I think AI, as much as it seems to be a threat in many ways, actually will help us to take this next stage.
NFTs, so to speak. It seems that downloading JPEGs or images are now no longer free because of NFTs. So we just want you to explain the importance of owning NFTs in this current time.
Well, the importance of owning NFTs, I think there is no significant importance except that to be part of this new era, I would believe. I think there's this, and it was funny to analyze. All of a sudden, everybody was an art collector, right? 1 year ago, everybody was all of a sudden, we gotta buy an NFT because we're gonna sell it later. And I think in reality, look into the world and ask yourself, how many art collectors are there? There aren't that many. You know what? There won't be many in NFTs either. So of course there was a hype and everybody went for it. Okay, great. Now we had NFTs and they represent some kind of digital art and like you could own them. And they have this obviously unique character that, that they're just one piece. You cannot just copy it.
Right.
And I think that there is, when we think of this new kind of digital environment, 3D environment, NFTs, we have to move away also from the idea that an NFT is just an image. It could be a water bottle. It could be a microphone.
Of course.
It could be clothes, right? It could be essentially the furnitures, the objects of a three-dimensional world that is virtual, right? So I think that's important. And you want to own a piece, you want to own a watch. And I remember a good friend of mine who said, I started walking into the Metaverse and I found myself looking exactly the same as everybody else.
Okay.
And the first reaction I had was to actually, I wanted to buy something to make me look special, right? And that's where it starts. If I'm willing to buy a little Rolex watch for even $1, that's in the market. So the dollar today will be $2 tomorrow, will be $5 today. If it's limited, people will want to trade that.
Right.
And that's where the NFT comes in. So the moment we have that as a unique object that can be traded, will be traded, can increase in value, can be a means of exchange based on technology, based on the blockchain that trust, technology in between, then that's why we need NFTs. They will stay here. Do we call them NFTs? Will we call them something else? But essentially, tokens, objects of some kind that are transferable but are unique in value.
All right. Cryptocurrency has become the talk of the town, especially in Dubai. The Crypto Expo Dubai just happened this month or earlier this month. Can you define to the listeners about cryptocurrency? Just a simple definition. Also the different types of crypto coins and how can you apply for an account?
Yeah, so that's obviously a big topic, which has been with us not since a year or two, right? Which has really kind of introduced this whole Web3 concept, right? If we look at the entire ecosystem of Web3, we have cryptocurrencies, we have NFTs, we have immersive experiences, the whole virtuality, we have the blockchain technology, right, as a technological base. We have decentralized organizations that work based on smart contracts. That means, if A happens, then B happens automatically, etc. And cryptocurrencies to the one extent, and there's obviously asset-backed tokens. I could tokenize, let's say, a house, right, in theory, and I could sell parts of that house in unique value. That could be a token. I could have a Bitcoin as a decentralized currency, right, which is kind of the gold of the digital age, as we call it, because it's limited in value, like in supply, therefore has a very clear value proposition. And then the utility tokens. Think of it more of a point system you would have if you go to Carrefour and others, right? You collect points and they're unique of some kind and they give you some kind of utility, right? And so what we see now is that those utility tokens start to move a lot into NFTs, and the token itself are more like of an exchange. And, digitalization, why are they so interesting in many ways is that you can transfer money within seconds from one place of the world to the others. I think maybe that the battle between the decentral kind of ideas and visions of the crypto kind of enthusiasts and the banking system, if they hadn't clashed from the get-go, I think, and would have been integrated better into the existing banking system, we would have a much more efficient banking system today. So I think this is still in the process of happening. It's not, doesn't have to be an alternative. We always think it's a battle of some kind. I think eventually we'll integrate better. Everything will integrate together. And, a lot of suppliers, but again, it's complicated. As much as I love technology, I think it has no value until us as humans, the broad audience, can simple and easy make use of it. And that's the mission we're in, and it's still there, even though cryptocurrencies have been there to create that. And I think the other elements, such as NFTs, because they're visually easier to grasp, and the metaverse even more so, will help us to actually close the cycle again back to cryptocurrencies and kind of create value in the entire ecosystem.
Okay. Well, one thing I like about you, Mr. Pascal, is that you are extremely positive about the future. The audience out there, they need to hear more positivity, that technology is here to help us. And there's always hope. And one thing about human beings is that we always find a way to survive. We always find a way to develop and grow. to the mix. And that's what I really like about this.
And I think it's so important whenever we look into what's going to happen, we tend to see the risk of it not working right. You know, I'm like, every time somebody flies, I'm scared and the flight's going to be delayed. There's the probability of negative things happening is so small that it's almost not worth it.
Right.
To consider them until they actually happen. And this is kind of my life story. I go through this. That's why we're entrepreneurs, and I encourage people, try to do something. If you feel strong about something, give it a try. If you look for an opportunity, Web3, currently, massive blue ocean, lots of opportunity. You can shape that industry with a few good ideas. And I think, you know, having that courage to say, I'm going to try, because what's going to happen? What is really going to happen if it doesn't work? Nothing. Except that you learned more, you met new people, you've taken the risk, you've learned, you know, it's great.
Right.
And we should encourage that much more, encourage them more in education. You know, when we study business, start a business. We're not studying business, we're starting a business. You know, that's the kind of, we're not analyzing Web3 from, you know, buy a token of some kind, create your first NFT. And we have to facilitate. And that's kind of coming back to the very starting point of what I said is brands are scared because they don't know. Individuals are scared because they don't know what that means to them.
Right.
You know, people in positions who take decisions are scared because AI is coming, and they're scared of their job because they were taught that their job would mean security, instead of asking themselves, you know, that security maybe lies within. If you find this passion and this optimism and you start creating something that really creates value. And that's my little story. I want to share always, right, this optimism, because I think there's more to gain than to lose in this whole development.
Well, people said the same thing about social media 10 years ago. Like, people were nervous about social media, and look where we are now. Things still remain the same in a way. And like you said, Web 3.0, this is the best time to invest new ideas and to grow. This is the beginning stage, as you said. This is the time for all of us to prosper. And instead of people being nervous about it, just take another risk and be more involved in it.
Absolutely. And it doesn't, and the beauty of this whole digital landscape we're finding ourselves in is it's not very costly, right? If you go back to the industrialization, you know, if you wanted to have business, you have to build a factory first and, you know, start rolling. Good luck. You know, it's lots of money being in there. Now you can, you know, start a little thing, get involved, join different events, all kinds of things, really get involved quickly. And most importantly, try to build something and try to sell it. And if somebody buys it, of whatever kind, congrats. That's it. That's the starting point. And then be open and, you know, continue flowing with your idea.
All right. Mr. Pascal, may we please talk about your company Moment?
Yeah. So, you know, I talked a lot about the entire ecosystem before, the Web3 ecosystem. And what we try to do at Moment is really to be that, you know, light of hope for companies, to actually help them to come in. And we've created a very, very simple, I would say, concept specifically at the crossroads of sports and brands. So we know a lot of brands out there do sponsoring, spend tons of money to be part of the games, right? Football, basketball, whatever it is. And what we actually do is we use data, live game data, as a trigger to create NFTs. So let's say Ronaldo scores a goal. Exactly in the second where Ronaldo scores a goal, an NFT is created. And we actually offer that NFT to brands to use it as advertisement space. So Nike could say, just do it. Right? Sounds a bit funny in the first moment, but in the second moment you realize, wait, if we start collecting those kind of cards, right, of some kind, we can actually start engaging users in a different way. We can introduce new products. We can create fan clubs. We can, you know, let them enter metaverse spaces of other kinds, of some kinds, and let them experience this Web3 component. And that's what we do. And we've worked with the brands of the likes of BMW here in the region around the tennis tournament recently. And we've worked with TCL, one of the TV brands, with the NFL around touchdowns. And we really use that. And the reason is very simple, is because people understand sport. They understand the goal of Ronaldo. It's very clear. They understand that this could be a significant moment that is relevant, and our brand understands that, and they say, well, if I can advertise around that, that's interesting, or I can give utility to the fans or to those who will collect that makes sense. And that's our entry point. And I think it's a great, easy entry point. This is what we do. And, you know, in the end, there's many brands waiting, wanting to work with us because for that reason.
Okay. Mr. Pascal, thank you so much for being a part of the Star Tech podcast. Is there any other wise quotes or wisdom you want to share out there?
I recently have been quoting Steve Jobs and, saying you got to start with the customer first and then, work backwards to technology. And I think if anything, when we think of Web3, this is kind of the essence. Let's think of people. Let's try to make it as easy as possible. Take it step by step. And as big as the ideas are and the opportunities in technology, let's try to bring it as close as possible to people and guide them, the users, as they enter that field step by step towards where it actually can go and can be.
So, Mr. Pascal, how can the listeners keep up to date to Moment?
Yeah, very simple. First of all, you can obviously come on our website, mo-me-nt.com, Moment, right? Maybe a bit complicated, but we specifically wanted to highlight the time slot in there as part of our branding as well. We're on the usual channels such as Instagram, we're in LinkedIn, obviously quite a strong B2B focus right now on Discord and all the usual kind of social media channels. And, stay up to date. We're minting currently Formula One, all kinds of other sports happenings around the world. So I think it's pretty exciting and keep up to date because it's going fast and more and more brands are joining. More and more sports are getting activated, and we're gonna very soon also launch our B2C in platform community engagement concepts where you can collect a few players and you become a team chef and you can do this and that. So there's lots of stuff happening over the next years in our roadmap, what we want to do. And we're welcoming everybody. Feel free, log in, collect your moments. I think when you log in, the first moment is for free anyway. It's maybe a very, very nice entry point. And we do it in a way, and that's an important one I just wanted to mention one more time, is you can use your social logins and your Gmail account or whatever it is, very easy to actually get your first NFT. And we will create a wallet for you in the background without you needing to actually download any wallets of any kind. And that's for us means bridging those two worlds.
And I hope you just had a positive moment. Thank you for listening to the Star Tech Podcast, where we explore the heights of the future. I am your host, Mr. Aurelius, and tune in next time. Have a great weekend. Ramadan Kareem.